Have you ever felt like God is taking too long, like your prayers are just echoing back to you in silence? What if I told you that the delay you're experiencing is not a punishment or a rejection, but a holy strategy? What if the very thing you're calling waiting is actually where your miracle is being formed? What if I told you that there is a divine intelligence at work right now, so perfect and wise that not even your most desperate cries can rush it? Because it's working for you, not against you? Yes, you're about to uncover something that very few people ever realize. God's timing is never random. It's not delayed. It's not slow. It's not uncertain. It's perfect. And once you understand how to walk in step with His time instead of fighting against it, your life will stop feeling like a battle and start becoming a blessing. There's a sacred power hidden in divine timing, a power that doesn't just change your circumstances, it transforms you. But so few ever learn to wait well. Most grow bitter. Many give up. Some take shortcuts and pay the price later. But those who wait on the Lord, says Isaiah 40:31, shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. This isn't just a nice verse, it's a revelation. And over the next few minutes, you're going to walk with me through the Bible to discover how waiting is not wasted time. It's preparation time. You'll see stories of people who thought God had forgotten them until everything changed in an instant. You'll learn how to find peace in God's pace and stop measuring your life by your calendar and start trusting the Creator of time itself. But I have to be honest, there's something hidden toward the end of this message, a truth so powerful that if you catch it, it could unlock the blessing you've been praying for. So don't miss a moment. Every second you spend here is a seed of faith, and trust me, it's going to bear fruit. Before we dive in, I want you to do something with me as a small act of faith. Type in the comments, "Peace in Christ." Yes, just those 3 words. It might seem simple, but there's something sacred about declaring peace even before the breakthrough comes. When you comment, you're aligning yourself with what God is about to do. And while you're here, go ahead and click that like button. Not just because it helps this video reach more people, which it absolutely does, but because every click is a way of saying, "God, I trust you. I'm willing to wait." When you interact with this message, you're part of spreading hope to someone who may be on the verge of giving up. You see, many people use these videos as their daily church. They don't have a pastor nearby. They don't have spiritual support at home. But this moment, this space, becomes a sanctuary. And your participation is part of that ministry. When you like, comment, and share, you're not just consuming, you're serving. So yes, subscribe. Not for numbers or popularity. Subscribe because sometimes God will speak through a video just when you need it most. Sometimes a thumbnail will remind you not to give up, and maybe, just maybe, that next video will carry the whisper of heaven you've been waiting for. And let me tell you something very important. The second to last reflection today might just carry the key to your next season. It's where we'll go deeper into the mystery of divine delay and how to recognize when God is about to act. Don't miss it. Because I believe you were brought here today for a reason. Let's begin this journey together. The time has come to trust God's timing. Sometimes God slows down the rhythm of your life, not to punish you, but to preserve you. It's easy to forget that God sees what you cannot. While you see a closed door and feel disappointment, He sees what's behind that door and protects you from it. That job you didn't get, that person who walked away, that opportunity that dissolved before your eyes, none of those were accidents. When you walk with the Lord, His no is just as holy as His yes, and His delays are often divine redirections. There's a moment in the life of David, before he ever wore a crown, where everything seemed to be going in the opposite direction of God's promise. He had been anointed king, and yet he was hiding in caves. He had received the word, but lived like a fugitive. If David had judged God's plan based on what his eyes saw, he would have assumed the promise was broken. But God wasn't done. He was preparing a king, not promoting a boy. And preparation takes time. That's what waiting with God really means. Not standing still, but being shaped. Like clay in the hands of the potter, we don't choose the spinning or the pressing or the pauses. But all of it is creating a vessel strong enough to carry purpose. You may feel like your life is on pause, Others seem to be moving forward while you remain stuck. You pray, but nothing changes. You try, but doors stay closed. And deep down, a quiet question begins to rise. Did I miss it? Did God forget me? The answer is no. God hasn't forgotten you. He's fortifying you. Think of the tree that grows slow and deep roots during the dry season. When the rains come again, it won't just survive, it will thrive. That's how spiritual resilience is built, not in abundance, but in longing, not in quick answers, but in faithful silence. Psalm 27:14 says, "Wait for the Lord, be strong and let your heart take courage, wait for the Lord." This isn't just advice, it's a lifeline. When you feel like everything is still, when it seems like God is late, He is actually on time, His time, and His timing is never flawed. Waiting is not easy, because it forces us to surrender control. It presses against our need to fix things, to rush, to force open what isn't ready. But that's the beauty of trust. That's not just believing that God will act, it's believing He knows when to act. There are seasons when the ground looks barren, but the seed beneath is doing sacred work. The roots are stretching, the strength is growing, and when the moment comes, it will bloom and no one will stop it. Not even you. The truth is, we often equate waiting with failure. We've been taught that fast is better, that movement is success. But in the kingdom of God, stillness is not stagnation. It's strategy. Jesus waited 30 years before starting His ministry. Moses waited 40 years in the desert. Sarah waited decades for a child. God's timing is not measured in minutes, it's measured in meaning. Sometimes, the very thing you're praying for would destroy you if it arrived too soon. What looks like a delay may be God's mercy dressing itself in patience. So instead of asking, "When, Lord?" try whispering, "What are you doing in me, Lord?" That shift will change everything. Because while you wait, He works. He's adjusting things behind the scenes. He's softening hearts. He's creating openings you haven't seen. And maybe, just maybe, He's preparing you to carry something so beautiful, so weighty, that it would have crushed the version of you that prayed for it last year. That's the wisdom of God's timing. It's not just about external blessing, it's about internal capacity. He loves you too much to bless you prematurely. And when the moment finally arrives, when the door opens or the breakthrough comes, you'll realize something stunning. It didn't happen late. It happened exactly when it should. So don't lose heart. Don't give up, because the answer is still forming. The waiting is holy. The pause is on purpose. And your story is still being written by the author who never wastes a word. Let patience have its perfect work in you. And soon you'll look back on this season with tears of gratitude, not frustration, because you'll see what God was building while you thought nothing was happening, and it will have been worth every minute. No matter how much you try to plan every step, life will always find a way to remind you that you are not in control. And that's not a punishment, it's a gentle invitation to let God lead. When we talk about God's perfect timing, we're not only talking about the big moments, the healing, the job, the breakthrough, but also about the daily flow of life, the little delays, the changed routes, the things that didn't go your way. All of it carries spiritual fingerprints. God doesn't just show up at the finish line. He walks beside you on the entire journey, even in silence, even when you feel forgotten. Remember the story of Lazarus. His sisters sent word to Jesus, "Come quickly, the one you love is sick." But Jesus didn't come quickly. In fact, He waited 2 more days before leaving. By the time He arrived, Lazarus had been in the tomb for 4 days. From a human perspective, it was too late. But from a divine perspective, it was exactly the right moment. Why? Because God wasn't interested in healing Lazarus. He was planning to resurrect him. What looked like a delay was actually an upgrade in the miracle. There are times in your life when you're asking God to fix something, and He's already planning to transform it. But for that to happen, He needs your surrender. He needs your trust. Sometimes we ask for small answers, while God is preparing a great revelation, but He won't force it. He waits for your heart to be ready. You may be in a place right now where you're saying, "I can't see what God is doing." That's okay. You're not called to see everything. You're called to believe. Isaiah 55:8-9 reminds us, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord." As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways and my thoughts than your thoughts. This is not a verse of confusion, it's a verse of comfort. You don't need to understand everything to rest in God's hands. You don't need to have all the answers to have peace. What you need is trust. Not blind trust, but anchored trust, built on His faithfulness, not your feelings. There are doors that haven't opened for you yet, not because they're locked, but because they're not your doors. Or maybe it's simply not the time. And that's okay. What God has for you will come. Not early, not late, but right on time. Think of the farmer who plants in spring. He doesn't rush out the next day expecting a harvest. He waters. He waits. He trusts that what was planted in faith will rise in its season. If he tries to dig it up too soon, he'll destroy what's still forming. You too are in a growing season, even if you feel buried. Even if all you see is darkness. Seeds don't bloom overnight. But buried doesn't mean forgotten. It means something sacred is happening beneath the surface. Don't measure your life by what's visible. That's the trap. Measure it by faith, by what's promised. Because God doesn't work in your time, He works in His purpose. And His purpose is always redemptive. If you find yourself questioning why things haven't happened yet, breathe. Let go of your timeline. And remember, God doesn't need to hurry. He doesn't need to rush to impress you. He already knows the end from the beginning. He's not pacing in heaven, wondering what to do. He's calm, He's wise, and He's already there, in your future, waiting for you to catch up to His plan. You're not behind. You're not lost. You're not forgotten. You're just in the middle of the process. So pause right now and ask yourself, what if the very thing I'm waiting for is waiting on me to grow into it? That shift in thinking could bring peace like a river. Because the truth is, if God rushed everything you asked for, you'd miss the glory that only comes from trust. You'd bypass the intimacy that comes from leaning on Him in the dark. And you'd never learn how to rest in His perfect timing, the kind of timing that changes everything. There's a hidden grace in every season of delay, but you only recognize it in hindsight. The moments you once begged God to hurry through are often the same ones you later thank Him for. Why? Because in those slow, quiet, uncertain days, He wasn't just working on your situation, He was working on you. Spiritual maturity isn't born in answered prayers, it's forged in the wilderness of waiting. Abraham knew what it meant to wait. God promised him descendants as numerous as the stars, yet decades passed, and his wife, Sarah, remained barren. Everything around him seemed to contradict God's word. And still, the Bible says, Abraham did not waver through unbelief regarding the promise of God. He didn't understand the how or the when, but he chose to believe in the who, in the character of the God who made the promise. Sometimes faith is not clinging to the outcome, but clinging to the one who spoke. That's what makes the waiting holy. It becomes less about what you're hoping for and more about who you're hoping in. And that shift is everything. When your heart is aligned with God's time, peace replaces pressure. But too often we demand clarity. We want details. We want to know what's next. And when we don't get answers, we assume God is silent. But silence isn't absence. It's a deeper invitation. When Jesus was tempted in the wilderness, He didn't have a timeline or a blueprint. He had the word, and that was enough. Man shall not live by bread alone, He declared, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. You see, waiting becomes sustainable when you're fed by His promises, not by outcomes. There's a beautiful verse in Psalm 37:7 that says, "Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for Him. Do not fret when people succeed in their ways." That last part stings, doesn't it? Because we often compare our pace to someone else's progress. We look around and wonder, why them and not me? But the race you're running isn't against others. It's the race marked out for you. And in God's kingdom, the slowest runner can still arrive exactly on time. Comparison is one of the biggest thieves of joy, and also one of the deepest enemies of faith. Because when you envy someone else's timing, you reject the sacredness of your own. Your story isn't late, it's unique. God is not producing you on an assembly line, He's crafting you with His hands. So don't despise your season. Don't rush what's still being shaped. Don't curse what God is still blessing in silence. There are breakthroughs in the making right now, the kind that take time because they go deep. They don't just fix the surface, They reconstruct the heart, and that takes a little longer. Think about it. The fastest things in life are often the most fragile. A storm can form in minutes and destroy just as quickly, but a mountain is built over ages. It stands through winds, floods, and fire, and that's what God is building in you, something immovable. If you allow Him to, you may be tempted to run ahead, to make things happen on your own, to take control back into your own hands. But every shortcut away from God's timing eventually leads to disappointment. Not because God punishes you, but because the foundation wasn't ready to carry the weight of the blessing. So wait, not with frustration, not with bitterness, but with expectation. Wait like someone who knows that God is preparing something better than you asked for. Wait like someone who trusts that even the no is kind, that even the silence is full of love. And in the meantime, worship. Don't let your praise be conditional. Don't say, "I'll thank God when He does this." Thank Him now. Praise Him now. Celebrate the God who never abandons, who never forgets, who always arrives, even if it's not when you expected. He's not just bringing you to the blessing, He's making sure you're the kind of person who can hold it when it comes. And when it does, when His perfect timing finally unfolds in your life, it will be better than anything you could have forced into place, because what is born from waiting stays. And it stays because it was built by God. One of the hardest things to accept is that sometimes your breakthrough comes disguised as a delay. You may pray for a door to open, and all you hear is silence. You may fast, cry, beg, and yet it feels like heaven remains still. But what if that silence is not a denial but a sacred pause? What if God is doing His most important work in the unseen? The truth is, God does some of His deepest miracles behind the curtain of time. We live in an age that demands speed, fast answers, instant results, immediate clarity. But God doesn't operate on the world's timeline. His work is eternal, and eternal things take time to be shaped. Your calling, your purpose, your growth, they are not microwave processes. They are more like gardens, planted with intention, watered with patience, and harvested in due season. In Galatians 6:9, Paul writes, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." This proper time is not always when we want it, but it is always when we're ready for it. What's dangerous is that many people give up just before the season changes. They walk away from the field because they see no fruit, not realizing that under the soil, something has been steadily growing. This is why perseverance isn't just a virtue, it's a weapon. You don't need to fight harder. You need to wait deeper. You see, while you're waiting on God to move, He's watching to see how you wait. Are you waiting with fear or with faith? Are you growing bitter or growing stronger? Because waiting is not passive, it's an active trust. Every second you choose to trust instead of panic, you are worshiping God. There's a powerful story in the Old Testament where the Israelites, after leaving Egypt, stood before the Red Sea with Pharaoh's army chasing them from behind. The people panicked. But Moses said something incredible in that moment. "The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Be still." That stillness wasn't weakness. It was faith. It was surrender. It was confidence in a God who sees what we don't. And then, the sea parted. God's timing is often revealed in moments where everything seems impossible, and suddenly something shifts. But for that shift to happen, your heart has to be aligned. Not just your prayer life, but your posture. Your ability to stay available to God, even when nothing is changing. Sometimes God delays a blessing to protect it from your anxiety, because if you receive it too early, you'll grab it with fear instead of gratitude. You'll doubt it, try to control it, or even run from it because you don't yet see yourself as worthy. But the waiting, it matures you, it prepares you, it heals what you didn't even know was broken. That's why divine timing is also divine mercy. It slows us down long enough to remove the idols in our hearts, the false timelines, the prideful plans, the emotional shortcuts, and replaces them with something eternal, trust. The kind of trust that says, even if it takes longer than I thought, I still believe. Even if everyone else seems ahead, even if I don't understand the process, even if my heart grows tired some days, I still believe. That is the posture God blesses. Think of Joseph, betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, forgotten in prison. Year after year passed, but each delay, each injustice was moving him closer to his purpose. And when God's time came, Joseph didn't just receive freedom, he stepped into destiny. If you're in a season of delay, remember this: God's silence is never God's absence. His stillness is never his disinterest. And his timing, though confusing now, will one day become your praise report. You won't always see the hand of God while you're waiting, but if you remain faithful, you'll one day stand in the middle of the miracle and realize he was working all along. So breathe, rest, and choose to wait with expectation, not despair. Because what's coming is not just good, it's perfect, just like his timing. There's a quiet kind of warfare that happens in the waiting, not around you, but within you. When answers don't come, when time stretches long and heavy, the battle shifts from the external to the internal, and the enemy knows it. He whispers lies into that silence. God forgot you. Nothing's going to change. You're being punished. These aren't just passing thoughts. They're spiritual attacks, subtle but sharp, designed to erode your hope one day at a time. But hope, real hope, isn't based on circumstances. It's rooted in character, the character of a God who cannot lie. Psalm 135 says, "I wait for the Lord, my whole being waits, and in his word I put my hope." That's not casual waiting. That's the kind that comes from someone who's decided, even if I don't see it, even if I don't feel it, I'll still believe it. Not because of optimism, but because of truth. And the truth is, when God speaks a promise over your life, time doesn't weaken it, it proves it. Think about Noah. He was told to build an ark when there wasn't a cloud in the sky. Day after day he worked. People mocked him. Time passed, nothing changed. But then the first drop of rain fell, and everything God said became visible. What if your life is just one drop away from that shift? The danger of impatience is that it tempts you to act without God, to start shaping the future with your own hands, forgetting that his hands are wiser. That's what happened to King Saul. When the prophet Samuel delayed, Saul grew restless. Instead of waiting, he took matters into his own hands and made a sacrifice he had no authority to make. That one moment of impatience cost him the kingdom. Impatience is not just about frustration, it's about trust. Do you trust God enough to wait without manipulating the outcome? Because forced blessings become burdens. Doors you push open often lead to places you weren't meant to enter. But when God opens a door, no one can shut it. And when he says it's time, nothing on earth can delay it. The world glorifies hustle. God honors surrender. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is not to push harder, but to pause, to say, God, I release this. I still want it, but I want you more. That's the kind of posture that turns delays into altars, sacred places where your heart is reshaped. You may not be where you hoped by now, but that doesn't mean you've failed. It might just mean you've been preserved. God sees the full picture. He knows the weight of the blessing you've been asking for, and maybe, just maybe, he's stretching your soul so it can hold what's coming. Because when your character grows, your capacity does too. Waiting teaches you to listen more closely, to see the small signs of grace you used to miss, to recognize God not just in the miracles but in the mundane, a gentle word, a timely verse, a quiet strength that holds you when your heart feels weak. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to map every step. All you need is the faith to stay where God told you to stand, even when it looks like nothing is happening. Because spiritual maturity isn't proven by how quickly you receive. It's revealed by how deeply you trust while you wait. There is a kind of beauty that only grows in the dark. The roots of your faith are being strengthened. The soil of your soul is being enriched. And the longer the wait, the stronger the foundation. So, don't be afraid of delay. Don't curse the stillness. Don't rush past the lesson. Embrace the slow miracle. Because when the time is right, when God's time is right, it will happen. And you'll understand why the wait was not just necessary, it was sacred. Some of the most beautiful chapters in your life will begin with the words, "It took longer than I thought." Because there are blessings that don't arrive on your schedule. They arrive on God's. And when they do, you'll realize something that will bring tears to your eyes. The delay didn't deny you. It prepared you. In the quiet space between your prayer and God's answer, something extraordinary happens. You begin to shed your illusions of control. You begin to see what really matters. You begin to recognize that the true gift is not just in the thing you're waiting for, but in who you become while you wait. There's a sacred transformation that can only occur when your hands are empty and your heart is full of trust. In Psalm 62:5, the psalmist says, "Yes, my soul, find rest in God. My hope comes from Him." That's not just a verse, it's a declaration. A reminder that hope is not an emotion that comes and goes with circumstances. Hope is a position, a decision, a response to a God who has never failed. The waiting room is not a punishment, it's a place of divine encounter. Ask Jacob, who wrestled all night. He didn't receive the blessing until the sun was rising, until the end of his striving. And when he did, he walked away limping, yes, but also marked by God. Something had shifted in him. He wasn't the same man who entered that night. Maybe that's what God is doing in you too. You came to Him asking for a change in your life, and He began by changing you. Because sometimes the breakthrough isn't an external shift. Sometimes it's an internal awakening. A new way of seeing, a deeper strength, a quieter confidence. You see, when you trust God's timing, you stop demanding signs and start living by faith. You stop asking for proof and start resting in presence, His presence. And that changes how you walk through the world. You become less reactive, more rooted, less anxious, more aware. You stop comparing your journey to others and begin honoring your own. There's a reason the Bible compares faith to walking. It's about movement, but it's also about rhythm. Trusting that each step, even if small, is taking you somewhere sacred. That even when the path seems long, you're not lost, you're led. You are being led right now, not just toward a destination, but toward deeper dependence, toward peace that doesn't require control, toward the kind of joy that isn't shaken by delay. And yes, it's hard. Waiting is not easy, especially when you feel like you're doing everything right, and yet nothing moves. But faith is not measured by how fast your prayers are answered. It's measured by how long you can stand with your arms raised, even when the answer hasn't come. Like Moses, who stood on the hilltop with his hands lifted as the Israelites fought below. As long as his arms remained raised, they were winning. When they dropped, they began to lose. So others came alongside him to hold up his hands. And maybe that's what you need right now. Someone to hold up your arms. A word to steady your heart. A reminder that you are not alone in the waiting. This is that reminder. You are not forgotten. God is closer than you feel. His timing is not failing you. His silence is not abandonment. His delay is not rejection. It is mercy. It is preparation. It is love. And when it finally happens, when the breakthrough comes, when the door opens, when the prayer is answered, you'll know it wasn't your effort that made it possible. It was your surrender. So breathe, child of God. Be still. Keep your heart open, your spirit soft. Let each day of waiting draw you closer, not farther. Let it refine you, not harden you. Because this very season, might be the one you look back on years from now and say, that was the time I learned to trust. That was when I became who I am. That is the power of divine timing, and it's already at work in you. Sometimes the evidence of God's timing isn't in what starts, it's in what stops. There are moments when a conversation falls silent, a friendship fades, an opportunity slips away, and your first instinct is to grieve the loss. But what if what ended was actually God's way of making space? What if His perfect timing is not only about opening doors, but also about closing the ones that no longer serve your purpose? You see, we often think of divine timing as the moment something begins. But heaven's timing also includes the moment something is removed, to protect, to redirect, to realign. And yet, we resist. We try to hold on. We try to rescue relationships God already released. We try to rebuild bridges He's asked us to leave behind. But the truth is, part of trusting God's timing means trusting when He says, it's done. That's not rejection, it's release. In Ecclesiastes 3:1, we're told, there is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens. That means there is a holy rhythm to your life, and some of the most sacred moments are when God interrupts your rhythm to reset your heart. Imagine someone playing a beautiful song on a piano. There are not only notes, but pauses, and it's the timing of the silence that gives meaning to the melody. If everything was noise, the music would be chaos. It's the rests, the spaces, that create harmony. Your life is like that. God sometimes places a rest, a pause, a stop, not to harm you, but to bring harmony, to recalibrate your soul, to pull you out of places you've outgrown, to lead you towards something that fits your anointing, not just your ambition. So if something has ended recently, don't panic. Ask instead, what is this making room for? There's a divine sequence unfolding, and just because you can't see all the steps doesn't mean they're not ordered. You're not walking randomly. You're walking intentionally under the gaze of a God who counts even your tears. Yes, your plans may have unraveled, but they unraveled to make way for His plan. And His plan doesn't fail, but it does confuse us sometimes. It stretches our patience. It asks us to be still when we want to move, to let go when we want to grip tighter, to rest when we want to strive. And that's why waiting becomes a sacred act of war, against fear, against doubt, against the lie that says, God has left you. He hasn't. In fact, some of the most powerful moves of God begin in silence. Like the years Jesus lived before His ministry. We know so little about them, but in those hidden decades, God was forming the fullness of what was to come. Not a single day was wasted, and neither is this one. You may not be preaching to crowds or parting seas, but if you're waking up and choosing to trust God again today, you are doing holy work. You are in sync with the divine. And sometimes that's all faith is. Waking up, breathing in grace and saying, I still believe you know what you're doing. Even if the calendar disagrees, even if the timeline you wrote for your life is months or years off track. Because what is off to you is right on time for the one who holds eternity. Let this truth anchor you. God's timing is not designed to frustrate you, it's designed to free you from anxiety, from comparison, from striving. You are not running behind, you are being carried forward by a God who is never late, who walks beside you at your slowest pace, who leads you gently, and who will at the right moment cause all things to align, beautifully, suddenly, undeniably. When that day comes, and it will come, you will understand why every not yet was a kindness, why every door that stayed closed protected you, why every delay deepened you, and you will look up, smile through tears and say, God, now I see it. Thank you for not giving it to me when I asked. Thank you for waiting. Thank you for being wiser than me. That's when you'll know. Divine timing wasn't holding you back, it was carrying you home. There is a kind of peace that can't be explained, only experienced, and it often arrives when you stop asking when and start trusting who. When you let go of your schedule and hand God the pen, He writes a story richer than anything you could have scripted. But that surrender isn't easy. It requires you to loosen your grip on control, to unclench your timeline, and to walk by faith, not by sight. Because faith doesn't always feel like fire. Sometimes it feels like silence, like walking through fog and still choosing to take the next step. The journey of trusting God's timing is not about pretending you're okay. It's about being real with your pain and still refusing to walk away from Him. It's in that tension between hope and heartache where spiritual intimacy is born. David wrote in Psalm 31:15, "My times are in your hands." What a beautiful confession. Not my success or my blessing, but my times, my seasons, my delays, my waiting, my moments that feel lost. This is where freedom begins. When you hand over your calendar to God and say, your will, not mine. Your time, not mine. Because only then can you stop living in anxiety over things you can't control. Only then can you rest in knowing that you are not being forgotten. You are being woven into something bigger. Look at the stars. They don't rush to shine. They wait for the darkness and then, without striving, they do what they were made to do. And that's you too. You are not behind. You are not late. You are simply being made ready for your moment to shine. But don't mistake stillness for emptiness. This stillness you're in, it's holy. It's the sound of God preparing something beneath the surface, and often, the longer the stillness, the greater the shift that's coming. Think about how a baby grows in the womb. 9 months of silence. No applause, no updates, just formation. Quiet, sacred formation. And when the time is right, not a day early or late, life emerges. This is what divine timing looks like. And here's the truth. If God gave you everything you wanted right now, would you be ready to hold it? Could you sustain it? Would your heart be healthy enough to carry it with humility and gratitude? That's what this waiting is doing. It's not withholding, it's equipping. You're being shaped so that when the blessing arrives, it doesn't crush you. It completes you, because not every delay is from the enemy. Some delays are from God, to grow your roots deeper before your branches reach higher. He doesn't just want to give you a moment, He wants to give you a testimony, and testimonies take time. So don't resent this season. Walk through it, feel it, let it change you. Let it build a quiet confidence in you that says, even if nothing moves today, I will. I will move in faith. I will move in love. I will move in worship. Because God's promises are not fragile. They don't depend on your strength or speed. They rest on His character. And that character is faithful, eternal, and unfailing. One day, this season you're in, this exact one, will be your story. The part you tell others about, the part that brings someone else hope. And you'll look back and realize God was not slow, He was careful. Careful with your heart, careful with your purpose, careful with your future. That is the kind of Father you have. So stay steady. Keep watering the seeds in prayer. Keep lifting your eyes even if they're filled with tears. Keep believing that just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it's not on its way. Because what God has promised is not being denied, it's being delivered. And it will arrive at exactly the right time. You were never meant to carry the weight of time on your own shoulders. That pressure you feel, the urgency to make things happen, to not fall behind, to fix your life before a certain age, it's not from God. That weight comes from the world, from fear, from comparison. But God never called you to live by the clock. He called you to live by trust. And when you live by trust, everything changes. You stop rushing and you start resting. You stop chasing and you start receiving. You stop surviving by your strength and start walking by His Spirit. Because the truth is, the moment you surrendered your life to Jesus, your timeline was no longer yours. It was placed in the hands of the Eternal One, the Alpha and the Omega, the God who sees the end from the beginning and the beginning from the end. You don't have to figure it all out. You only have to walk in step with Him. But walking in step requires rhythm. And sometimes God's rhythm feels slower than you want. It feels too quiet, too hidden, too still. And you wonder, am I doing something wrong? No, beloved, you are just learning to abide, to remain, to rest, to trust, even when you don't understand. That's what Jesus spoke of in John 15, the vine and the branches. He didn't say, rush ahead and produce fruit. He said, abide in me. And from that abiding, the fruit grows. You see, fruit doesn't panic. Trees don't stress over how fast they're growing. They simply stay rooted. They receive the sun, the rain, the wind, and through it all they become. That's your invitation, not to push harder, but to remain longer. To sit with God in the waiting and ask not, when will you move? But what are you teaching me here? Because these quiet seasons are not a detour. They are the classroom of heaven. It's in the stillness that your identity is solidified. It's in the delay that your faith is tested and purified. It's in the waiting that your spiritual ears begin to hear God in new ways. His whisper becomes louder than the world's noise, and that changes everything. When you start listening to God's whisper, you stop fearing the silence. You start finding peace in pauses. You stop seeing time as your enemy and begin seeing it as a gift, a sacred container where God works miracles slowly, beautifully, deeply. There is no wasted time in the hands of a faithful God. Even the days that feel repetitive, the weeks that seem empty, the months that feel like nothing is happening, all of it is held, all of it is used. Nothing slips through His fingers. And maybe today, that's all you need to know. Nothing is being wasted. The dreams you've laid down, the prayers you've whispered, the tears you've cried into your pillow when no one was watching. God saw it all, and He is not ignoring you. He is investing in you. Sometimes divine delay is the sign that you're being trusted with something bigger than you imagined, and that kind of blessing takes time. But when it comes, it will be more than you prayed for, more than you imagined, and it will fit you perfectly, not just because it's beautiful, but because you'll be ready, ready to hold it without fear, ready to carry it with gratitude, ready to glorify God through it, not yourself. That is what divine timing does. It strips away ego. It purifies motives, it deepens character. So if it's taking longer than expected, rejoice. Yes, rejoice. Not because it's easy, but because it's holy. You are in the hands of the one who never forgets, never delays without purpose, and never abandons what he began. He who began a good work in you, Philippians 1:6 says, will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. Let that promise hold you, because even when your hands feel empty, his are full, and he's holding you. Some of the most life-altering moments come not in grand explosions, but in quiet whispers, when your spirit finally stops wrestling with time and starts leaning into trust. There's a kind of sacred freedom that flows when you no longer try to force the future. You stop sprinting toward your blessing as if it might vanish. You stop bargaining with God as if he might change his mind. And instead, you start to rest in his consistency. You begin to realize that he doesn't just know what's best for you, he is what's best for you. And with that realization, waiting becomes less about what you're lacking and more about what you're learning. Do you remember Hannah? Her story is tucked into the early pages of 1 Samuel. She longed for a child, and year after year, her womb remained closed. In her grief, she poured her heart out at the altar, so deeply that Eli, the priest, thought she was drunk. But in her pain, she made a vow that if God gave her a son, she would give him back to the Lord. God answered her, not immediately, but intentionally. And from that delay was born Samuel, one of the greatest prophets in Israel's history. If her prayer had been answered the first time she asked, maybe her heart wouldn't have been prepared for the vow that changed the course of a nation. So many of us want Samuel-sized blessings, but we're not willing to wait with Hannah-sized faith. We want the breakthrough, but we avoid the barrenness. We want the crown, but resist the cave. We want the answer, but flee from the silence. But these are the very spaces where God refines us, where character is carved, where strength is born, because divine timing isn't just about when you're ready to receive. It's also about when what you receive will bring the greatest glory to God. What if the wait is not only for you to grow, but for the stage to be set, for the people to be in place, for the ripple effect of your breakthrough to reach more than you ever imagined? God doesn't just want to bless you. He wants to bless through you. And that kind of story takes time. So don't lose heart when the answer tarries. Habakkuk 2:3 says, though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay. That seems like a paradox. Though it lingers, it will not delay. But that's the mystery of divine timing. It may feel late to us, but it arrives precisely when it's meant to. The key is to remain soft in the waiting, not cynical, not numb, not hardened by disappointment, but open, teachable, yielded. Because when your heart is open, even the smallest signs of movement will feel like miracles. A conversation that stirs something, a door that cracks slightly, a peace that replaces panic. These are the subtle indicators that the season is shifting, that the God who planted you is about to lift you. And maybe right now you're not even waiting for something external. Maybe the thing you're truly longing for is clarity, or healing, or a sense of purpose in the in-between. Friend, the wait is not in vain. God is not idle. He is not slow. He is precise. And while you wait, he works. While you wonder, he weaves. While you cry, he counts your tears and stores them in his bottle. Not a single one lost. He's not just writing a story for you. He's writing a testimony through you. And that testimony will carry light for someone else who's waiting in the dark. So stay close. Not just to the promise, but to the promiser. Keep returning to the secret place. Keep walking even when the path disappears. Keep whispering yes to the one who has never failed you. Because you're not just waiting for time to pass, you're waiting for eternity to touch earth. And when it does, when heaven's clock strikes now, every minute of the wait will suddenly make sense. And you'll know it was never a delay. It was divine design. Every delay has a purpose, but it rarely reveals itself in the moment. In the middle of your waiting, all you can often see is what's missing. You feel the absence, the longing, the unanswered prayers. And the silence of heaven can seem deafening. But let me tell you something the enemy doesn't want you to realize. The silence isn't empty. It's full of preparation, full of alignment, full of the quiet work of God behind the scenes. God is not ignoring you. He's developing you. He's refining your patience so you don't settle for temporary things. He's shaping your discernment so you don't walk through every open door, only the right ones. He's building a version of you that will not only receive the promise, but protect it once it comes. Because what good is a blessing if you're not whole enough to carry it? Sometimes we think we're waiting on God to move, when in reality, He's waiting on us to grow, to heal, to lay something down, to surrender completely. Divine timing is never about delay for delay's sake. It's always about formation, not just around you, but within you. Take the Israelites, for example. They were delivered from Egypt, a miracle in itself. But what should have been a short journey to the promised land turned into 40 years. Why? Because even though they had left Egypt physically, Egypt was still in their minds and hearts. God didn't want to just bring them into a new land. He wanted to bring them into a new identity. That's what divine delay does. It confronts what can't come with you into the next season. It brings to the surface the idols, the insecurities, the wounds you've buried, and it gives you the sacred space to deal with them before the weight of your next level crushes what's still fragile. So yes, it's hard. Yes, it's stretching, but it's also grace, because God cares more about your becoming than your arriving. And here's the secret. While you're obsessing over the destination, God is obsessed with the journey. Not because He wants to prolong your pain, but because He knows joy isn't found in crossing a finish line. It's found in walking with Him every step of the way. That's the beauty of divine timing. It keeps you close. It makes you return to prayer not out of routine but out of need. It causes you to seek God not for what He can give, but for who He is. And in that sacred space of dependency, intimacy is born. Sometimes we forget that waiting is one of the most worshipful things you can do. When you wait with faith, you're declaring to the universe, "My hope is not in outcomes, it's in the author." And the author of your story doesn't write careless chapters. Even the ones filled with confusion, delay, heartbreak, or silence, they are not wasted. They are not random. They are the chapters that build depth, compassion, humility, vision. These are the pages that prepare you for impact. Because your life isn't just about what you receive. It's about who you become and how that becoming reflects Christ. You may not understand why it's taking so long. You may not see the reasons now, but one day you will. And on that day, your current prayers will become your future praise. You'll thank God for not answering too soon. You'll bless Him for holding you in the waiting. And you'll realize what felt like a delay was actually divine strategy. So don't let the wait discourage you. Let it anchor you. Anchor yourself in the truth that the God who began a good work in you will be faithful to complete it. Not on your timeline, but on His, the perfect one. And when that time comes, you will walk through the doors. He opens with joy, with clarity, and with a testimony that tells the world, "I waited, and God did not disappoint me." There's a moment in every believer's life when you stop asking God to speed things up and start asking Him to make you ready. That's when everything changes, because suddenly the focus shifts. You stop obsessing over the outcome and you start paying attention to the process. You start asking not, "When will this end?" but "What are you building in me through this?" And that shift, that internal transformation is what divine timing is all about. You see, the waiting doesn't delay the promise. It builds the person who will carry the promise with integrity, humility, and wisdom. There are things you've prayed for that would have crushed the version of you from a year ago. But God in His mercy said, "Not yet." Not to punish you, but to protect you and to prepare you. He is not just working on your behalf. He is working in you. Let that sink in for a moment. This season, the stillness, the silence, the slowness, it's not evidence of God's distance. It's evidence of His care, because God doesn't just deliver promises, He develops people. And He does it in the most unexpected places. Think about Joseph again. Before the palace, there was the prison. Before the dream came true, there were years of betrayal, misunderstanding, and isolation. But in that prison, Joseph was learning how to lead, how to forgive, how to hear God clearly even when circumstances were unjust. If he had skipped that chapter, he wouldn't have had the strength to sustain what came next. And the same is true for you. There is no wasted place in God's design. Not the job you lost, not the relationship that ended, not the prayers that haven't been answered yet. Every moment is being gathered by a loving Father who sees the full picture. Psalm 139:16 says, "All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be." That means before you felt the delay, God had already scheduled the breakthrough. And not only that, He wrote the in-between days too, the ones where you felt forgotten, the ones where you cried in secret, the ones where you questioned whether any of this was leading anywhere. It is. God is never idle. Even when it seems like nothing is moving, everything is being aligned. Your future spouse, being prepared, your next opportunity, being positioned, the healing you need, already begun in ways you can't yet see. But in the waiting, the enemy will try to wear you down. He'll try to convince you that God is unfair, that others are moving ahead while you stay stuck. He'll whisper that your story is too broken, too late, too small to matter. Do not listen. You are not forgotten. You are not behind. You are not overlooked. You are right where God needs you to be, for now. And what you do in the now matters. Your posture, your perspective, your persistence. The way you keep showing up in prayer, in worship, in obedience, even when there's no visible reward, that is your offering. That is your act of trust. That is your sacrifice of praise. And heaven honors it. Heaven sees the widow's mite, the mustard seed of faith, the late-night surrender when no one else is watching. Those are the things that move the heart of God. So if you're tired, rest, but don't quit. If you're confused, pause, but don't despair. If you're still waiting, wait well. Because in the hands of God, waiting is not just a delay, it's a design. A design for deeper roots, stronger faith, and a testimony that will one day sound like this. I didn't see it coming, but when it arrived, it was exactly what I needed, exactly when I needed it. And you'll know, without a shadow of doubt, that God's timing wasn't just good, it was perfect. Sometimes the greatest evidence of God's love is not what He gives you, but what He asks you to wait for. Because in the waiting, you discover a dimension of God you can't find in the rush. The God who is not hurried by human pressure, not intimidated by your timeline, not swayed by your impatience. He's not distant, He's deliberate. And every moment He asks you to wait is an invitation to draw nearer, to listen closer, to become quieter, so you can finally hear Him above all the noise. We don't usually like that kind of invitation. We want the breakthrough without the build-up, the miracle without the maturity. But in the kingdom of God, process always precedes promise. There is no shortcut to glory, only surrender. And surrender is not passive. It's not throwing your hands up and giving in to despair. It's lifting your hands upward and saying, even if it takes longer than I thought, you are still worthy of my trust. Look at how Jesus responded to delay in John 11. Lazarus was sick. His sisters begged Jesus to come. But instead of rushing to heal him, Jesus stayed 2 more days where he was. Why? Because there was a deeper miracle in store. Not a healing, but a resurrection. Not a moment of comfort, but a moment of revelation. Jesus told them, this sickness will not end in death, it is for God's glory. And maybe, just maybe, what you're walking through right now isn't going to end in disappointment either. Maybe it will end in glory. Maybe the situation you think is dead is just resting. Maybe the dream that seems buried is about to rise again, not as a replica of your plan, but as a fulfillment of God's plan. And the only thing between what is and what will be is time. But not just any time, divine time. And divine time always comes dressed in disguise. It looks like silence, it feels like obscurity, it tastes like surrender. But it always, always delivers something eternal. God is not a God of instant gratification. He's a God of lasting transformation. He's not after your comfort, He's after your calling. And sometimes that means letting go of the version of your future you imagined, so He can give you the future He designed. That's what happened to Peter. He thought his timing was perfect when he told Jesus he'd follow him to the end, but within hours he was denying Him, broken, ashamed, lost in a spiral of failure. But Jesus, in His timing, restored Peter, not when Peter felt ready, but when Jesus knew he was. That restoration led to Pentecost, to purpose, to history being changed. But it started with a failure and a wait. Friend, if it feels like your life is paused, remember this. God pauses things He wants to protect. He holds back what you're not ready to carry. Not to punish you, but to preserve you. He's preserving your peace. He's preserving your purpose. He's preserving the people you're meant to impact. Because when you move in sync with God's time, your life doesn't just make sense, it makes impact. So let go of the anxiety that tells you you're behind. You're not. You're exactly where you need to be to receive what God has for you next. But only if you don't run ahead. Only if you don't quit. Only if you don't settle for something less just because it came sooner. Wait well. Worship in the waiting. Declare victory before the evidence shows up. Because in God's economy, the ones who wait are not forgotten, they are chosen, they are loved, and they are right on time. There will come a day when you'll look back at this very season, the one you cried through, prayed through, questioned, and almost gave up in, and you'll say, that was the moment God was building me. And you won't just believe in His timing, you'll be grateful for it. Because by then you'll see what you couldn't see in the middle of it all, that the delay wasn't just about timing, it was about transformation. That every day you thought was wasted was actually doing invisible work, that your prayers weren't ignored, they were planted, and in the soil of surrender they began to bloom in ways you couldn't have imagined. You'll realize that the waiting didn't weaken your faith, it deepened it. God doesn't waste anything, not the closed doors, not the missed opportunities, not the days that didn't go as planned, not even your frustration. Everything is used. Everything is gathered into His design. Even the things that broke you open are now letting light pour through. In Psalm 126:5, the word says, "Those who sow with tears will reap with songs of joy." What a promise. Every tear you've sown in the dark, every sigh, every sleepless night, every God, why? It's not just emotion, it's intercession. It's planting something sacred into the heart of heaven. And when the harvest comes, it won't just bless you, it will overflow to others. Because when God finally brings you into that long-awaited promise, it won't be small, it won't be rushed, it won't be fragile, it will be full, strong, and undeniably divine. It will carry the fingerprints of grace, not human striving. You'll know you didn't get there on your own, and that's the best part. Because your story will no longer be about your timeline. It will be about His faithfulness. It will point upward, not inward. It will become a lighthouse for others who are still stuck in the fog of waiting. A living testimony that says, if He did it for me, He'll do it for you. But before that day comes, you have to decide something in the now. You have to decide to trust when the calendar mocks you, to trust when social media makes you feel behind, to trust when well-meaning voices tell you to settle, to trust when your emotions scream, move now. You have to decide to stay when everything in you wants to run ahead, because that's where the oil is, that's where the anointing comes, in the surrender, in the stillness, in the secret, slow, steady yes to God's process, even when no one else sees it, especially then. You may not feel it, but your waiting is worship, your patience is praise, your silence is strength, your trust is testimony. God is shaping something in you that will outlast temporary success. He's giving you roots that will keep you anchored when the storms come. Because what good is a fast rise if it comes with a fragile fall? You don't need something now. You need something that lasts. And lasting things take time, so let Him take His time, let Him surprise you. Let Him write a story so rich in wisdom, so full of beauty, so marked by redemption, that you'll stand in awe not only of the destination, but of the journey that shaped you. Because one day the wait will end, the door will open, the prayer will be answered, and the only thing greater than the miracle, it will be the person you've become because of it. There's a divine rhythm to your life, and when you start to move in harmony with it, something inside you begins to heal. It's the moment your soul exhales, the moment you stop demanding that everything happen now and instead whisper, God, I trust you, even in this. That is where true spiritual maturity begins, not in the blessings received, but in the peace discovered when nothing seems to change, when the sky remains quiet, when the breakthrough doesn't arrive, when the prayers still hang in the air unanswered, yet your heart still bows. That kind of trust doesn't come overnight. It's cultivated in long seasons, in wilderness moments, in nights when you cry and still choose to believe. In mornings when your heart aches and yet you say, "Today I walk by faith." And that kind of trust is unshakable. It's the kind of trust that hell can't touch and time can't wear down. It's born when you finally realize that God isn't just the God of the destination. He's the God of this very step, the mundane one, the hard one, the confusing one, and He is still good here. Psalm 84:11 says, "No good thing does He withhold from those who walk uprightly." That means if God is withholding something right now, it's not because He's cruel or absent. It's because He sees what you don't. He sees the timing, the terrain, the dangers ahead. And He's not preparing the blessing for you. He's preparing you for the blessing. Because if you received it too soon, it might overwhelm you. If it came before its time, you might mishandle it. If it fell into your life before your character was ready, it might cost you more than it gave you. But when God brings it, in His time, it will fit, it will flow. It will not come with confusion, but with clarity. Not with chaos, but with peace. And that peace will confirm that it wasn't your striving that made it happen. It was His hand. And when that moment comes, you won't look back and say, "I wish it had come sooner." You'll say, "Lord, thank you for waiting with me. Thank you for not rushing. Thank you for teaching me how to walk slowly, faithfully, prayerfully." Because you'll realize something sacred. The blessing wasn't just in the answer, it was in the becoming. You became more patient. You became more discerning. You became more rooted in who you are and whose you are. You stopped defining your life by what you lacked and started measuring it by the love that was always present. You started waking up grateful, not just for open doors, but for the strength to wait behind closed ones without bitterness. And that is spiritual freedom. That's what divine timing births. Not just a fulfilled prayer, but a free soul. So if you're still waiting today, don't rush to escape it. Don't numb it. Don't run from it. Don't compare it. Sit with it. Let it form you. Let it tune your ears to the whisper of God. Let it soften your grip on your plans and open your hands to His. Because in the end, the ones who wait on the Lord don't just receive, they rise. They will mount up with wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint. That's not just a poetic verse. It's a promise, a lifestyle, a quiet power that grows in the soil of patience. So keep walking, keep worshiping, keep waiting, because what's coming isn't just worth it, it's holy. There's something profoundly beautiful about a heart that chooses to stay faithful in a season that makes no sense. It's not loud, it's not glamorous, it's not the kind of moment the world celebrates, but heaven sees it. Heaven sees you. And in God's eyes, that kind of quiet endurance, the kind that holds on when the wait stretches long, when the prayers seem unanswered, when the silence lingers, is more powerful than any instant miracle, because it takes strength to keep showing up with hope when the outcome remains unseen. It takes courage to keep believing when everything around you whispers, "It's over." And it takes a surrendered spirit to say, "Even now, I trust you." That's the kind of faith that moves mountains. Not because of how strong you are, but because of how rooted you are in the one who cannot fail. Isaiah 28:16 says, "Whoever believes will not act hastily." That's a verse many overlook, but it carries a powerful truth. When you truly believe in God's timing, you stop rushing. You stop panicking. You stop grasping for quick solutions that only offer temporary relief. Instead, you become anchored in peace, anchored in trust, anchored in the understanding that waiting isn't about being stuck, it's about being sustained. Because God is not idle while you wait. He's not pacing the floors of heaven, uncertain or delayed. He's strategic, He's precise, and He's using this exact moment, yes, even this, to strengthen you in ways you can't yet comprehend. Think of it like this. When an architect designs a skyscraper, the deepest work is underground. The taller the structure, the deeper the foundation must be. And that foundation is laid before anything rises. That's what's happening in you. You're being built to carry something big, something eternal, something holy. And while it may feel like nothing's changing, everything is. Your character is deepening. Your endurance is expanding. Your spiritual eyes are being trained to see beyond what's visible. And when the moment comes, when God says, "Now," it won't just be a change in circumstance. It will be a shift in your entire identity, because the wait is not meant to leave you the same. It's meant to reveal the person God always knew you could become. That's why rushing ahead would only rob you of what's being formed. You don't need to chase what's already been appointed. What's yours and what God has truly ordained will arrive in the fullness of time. Not a second too late, not a moment too soon. You don't have to beg for it. You don't have to force it. You just have to keep walking step by step in trust. And yes, and some days you'll feel weak. That's okay. Grace meets you there. In fact, that's where it flows best, not in your strength, but in your surrender. You might say, but I've waited so long. And God whispers, so did Joseph, so did Moses, so did David, so did my son. And look what came on the other side. So hold on, beloved, not with gritted teeth and clenched fists, but with open hands and lifted eyes. You are not forgotten. You are not behind. You are being prepared, and with love, with purpose, with divine precision. And when your season shifts, when the door opens, when the promise arrives, you'll realize it was never about how fast you got there. It was always about who you became along the way. There's a kind of miracle that doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It unfolds quietly in the background while you think nothing is happening. That's what divine timing feels like. You look around and see the same scenery, the same routine, the same unanswered prayers. And yet, something is moving, not around you, within you. Beneath the surface of your circumstances, the Spirit of God is planting roots, stretching your soul, preparing you to carry a blessing far greater than what you've been asking for. Because the wait has never been wasted. It's been working. And not just for you, but through you. You may think you're stuck in delay, but heaven sees you being developed. Your patience is becoming a testimony. Your silence is becoming strength. Your hidden obedience, the kind no one sees but God, is becoming a light that will soon shine for others to follow. That's the mystery of God's timing. You don't always feel it happening, but you'll see the fruit when the season shifts. And when it does, when the prayer you've whispered in the dark finally begins to unfold, you'll understand why it had to take time, because instant fruit is often fragile. But the kind that's nurtured slowly, through trials and faithfulness, that's the kind that lasts. James 1:4 tells us, "Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." That's the goal. Not just an answered prayer, but a mature soul. A soul that has been tested by time and anchored in trust. The world glorifies speed, but the kingdom of God treasures surrender. Because speed may give you quick wins, but surrender gives you deep roots. And it's those roots that hold you firm when the winds of life blow hard. You may not realize it, but this waiting season is where your roots are going deeper, where your discernment is being sharpened, where your heart is being refined, where your motives are being purified. And that matters, because the deeper the root, the higher the tree can grow without toppling. Some of the very things you've prayed for would have come crashing down if God had given them to you too soon. Not because you weren't worthy, but because you weren't ready. Now He's making you ready. Ready to love with maturity, ready to steward with wisdom, ready to walk through open doors without fear. And when the breakthrough finally comes, it will fit. It won't come with confusion, but with clarity. You won't have to question if it's from God. You'll know, because it will carry His peace, and you'll carry His peace too, because in the waiting, you've learned to walk with Him. Not just toward the blessing, but in relationship with the one who blesses. That's the greatest gift of all. Not the promise fulfilled, but the person you've discovered in the process. So if the days still feel long, if the nights still feel quiet, if the answers still seem far away, take heart. The absence of change is not the absence of God. He's closer than you think. And His timing? It's not just perfect, it's personal, designed with your story in mind, designed with your healing in mind, designed with eternity in mind. So rest in this truth. You are not late, you are not lost, you are not overlooked. You are becoming. And soon, you'll step into a moment that feels like destiny, not because you forced it, but because you waited for it, and it will be worth it all. One of the greatest honors of walking with God is realizing that He trusts you enough to wait. We often think of trust as something we give to Him, trusting His promises, His process, His presence in our pain. But what if, right now, God is trusting you to wait without rushing, to remain when it would be easier to escape, to hold on to hope when every emotion tells you to let go? That's not weakness. That's faith refined by fire. Because faith that has never waited is faith that has never been tested. And untested faith may impress people, but it doesn't sustain purpose. The kind of faith that carries real power is the kind that's been through silence and stayed, through disappointment and stayed, through unanswered questions and stayed. You are not in this moment because you failed. You are in this moment because you are being entrusted. And when God entrusts you with a long season, it means He's preparing you for a long-term blessing, one that isn't flimsy or fleeting but solid, lasting and eternal. So don't despise the days that feel slow. Don't curse the calendar. Don't compare your timeline to someone else's, because your story is not theirs. Your calling is not theirs. Your battles, your lessons, your journey, they are yours alone, crafted by a Father who knows exactly how to prepare your heart for what's ahead. It's like a symphony. Each instrument has its moment, each section, its time to rise. But if you try to rush the melody, you ruin the music. Your life is a divine composition, and every pause matters. Psalm 33:20 reminds us, "We wait in hope for the Lord. He is our help and our shield." Waiting in hope, not in dread. Not in fear, not in defeat, but in a posture that says, even if I can't see it yet, I know it's coming, because it is. Maybe not in the way you pictured it. Maybe not through the person you expected. Maybe not in the time frame you prayed for, but it will come, in the form your soul truly needed, not just what your flesh wanted. That's how God works. He gives you not just what you ask for, but what will keep you aligned with Him. That means sometimes He'll hold back a blessing until your hands are no longer clenched around something that can't go with you. Sometimes He'll delay what you desire to deepen your desire for Him first. Because when your greatest joy is no longer found in what God can give, but simply in who He is, that's when you're ready for anything. And that's when everything changes, because you're no longer a servant chasing reward. You're a child resting in relationship. That's what this season is for. To teach you to rest before you run. To teach you to listen before you lead. To teach you to trust, not just with your lips, but with your life. So today, choose again to believe, even when it hurts, even when nothing makes sense, even when the wait feels endless. Say with your soul, "God, I still trust you." That single declaration, whispered through tears or spoken with trembling faith, shakes the gates of hell and draws heaven close. Because it tells your Father, I may not see it, but I know you're still writing. And when His pen lifts from this chapter, the next one will carry beauty you never imagined, grace you never expected, joy that couldn't be rushed. And you'll finally understand, the wait was never punishment. It was preparation, it was love. There's a moment in every long wait when your faith is no longer loud. It's quiet, steady, and unshakable. It's not the kind of faith that leaps anymore, it leans. Not because it's weak, but because it's grown wiser. It has learned to walk with God even when there's no visible evidence that anything is changing. This kind of faith doesn't demand constant signs. It has learned to recognize the presence of God even in stillness. It doesn't need open doors to believe that the way is being prepared. It trusts that if the door is still closed, there must be something sacred happening behind it. You've probably heard the phrase, God is never late. But it's more than a comforting saying. It's a spiritual reality. He's not trying to frustrate you by moving slowly. He's trying to form you into someone who doesn't need immediate gratification in order to remain faithful. That's what divine timing does. It purifies your motives. It strips away the impatience, the pride, the urge to impress, and replaces it with humility, endurance, and a quiet kind of resilience that can't be shaken by circumstances. Because when you've waited with God, you don't come out the same. You come out with eyes that see differently, a heart that's softer, a spirit that's deeper, a confidence that's not based on circumstances but on communion, the kind you cultivated with the Lord when no one else understood your waiting season. And now you do understand. He wasn't just withholding something from you. He was giving something to you. He was giving you wisdom. He was giving you perspective. He was giving you peace that doesn't depend on progress, and he was giving you himself. Because sometimes what you think is a delay is really just God pulling you aside for something more intimate. You wanted the destination, but he wanted a conversation. You wanted the miracle, but he wanted a moment with you. Do you see it now? This isn't about time. It's about trust. It's about whether you believe that God's character is better than your clock. Whether you can say, like the psalmist in Psalm 27:14, "Wait for the Lord. Be strong and take heart and wait for the Lord," not because waiting is easy, but because God is worth it. You may not realize it, but while you've been praying for things to change, you've been changing. That's the power of divine timing. It doesn't just answer prayers, it shapes people. So if you're still waiting today, let me speak directly to your heart. You are not doing something wrong. You are not forgotten. You are not falling behind. You are in the middle of a holy process, and the God who authored your story knows exactly when to turn the page. He knows when your heart is ready. He knows when the people around you are aligned. He knows when the soil is prepared for the seed to bear fruit. And when that time comes, it won't be forced, it won't be chaotic. It won't be something you have to manipulate. It will come with peace. It will come with clarity. It will come with joy so full, it will make the long nights and quiet tears worth every second. Because that's how God operates. He never arrives early to impress you. He arrives exactly on time to complete you. And when he does, you won't just receive what you waited for. You'll walk in it with strength, with grace, and with the quiet, steady confidence of someone who knows, "I didn't miss it. I didn't lose it. I didn't fall behind. I waited, and the Lord was faithful." You made it. And that says something about you, something powerful. You didn't just click, you didn't just skim, you stayed, you listened, you waited. And that tells me you're not just curious about God. You're hungry for him. You're searching not for quick answers, but for lasting truth. That kind of heart? It's rare. So before anything else, I want to honor you for your faith, for your endurance, for walking with me all the way to the end of this journey. And now, I want to invite you to mark this moment, not just in your memory, but in your spirit. Write these words in the comments as a declaration of faith and identity. "I trust the one who holds my time." That single phrase says more than 1,000 prayers. It's a banner over your life, a surrender of the clock, a letting go of anxiety, of fear, of the pressure to figure everything out. It's you saying, "God, I no longer need to control this. I just want to walk with you." If you've made it this far, you're not here by accident. You're one of the ones God is calling deeper, one of the ones he's shaping quietly for something greater, one of the chosen few who didn't rush away when things got uncomfortable, who didn't abandon the message when the answers weren't immediate. You stayed, and because you stayed, you've been changed. Maybe not in a loud, visible way. Maybe the world around you still looks the same. But inside, a shift has begun. A seed has been planted. A spiritual anchor has been lowered. And now you're steadier than before. So here's what I ask of you now. Don't keep this to yourself. If this message stirred something in you, it's because it was meant to stir something in someone else through you. Share this video, send it to someone who's struggling in the wait. Post it where someone who feels forgotten can see that they're not alone. And subscribe, not just because it helps the channel, but because it creates a rhythm in your spiritual life. A rhythm of returning to the Word, of sitting in God's presence, even if just for a few minutes a day, of not walking this journey alone. Many people come to this space because they don't have a church nearby, because they feel spiritually isolated, because they need a voice that reminds them they're not forgotten. If that's you, know that this place was built for you. And your engagement, your comment, your like, your share becomes part of the ministry. You're not just receiving, you're now part of what God is doing here. So be proud of that. Be proud that you didn't just consume this, you contributed to it. That makes you a vessel of God's presence. Now, before this video ends, I want you to do one last thing. Take a deep breath, close your eyes if you can, and take a few sacred seconds to thank God, not for the blessings that have come, but for the ones that are still on their way. Thank Him for the delays that protected you. Thank Him for the silence that taught you to listen. Thank Him for the weight that deepened your worship. Thank Him for being patient with you, even when you struggled to be patient with Him. And now, stay still. Don't rush away. Let the final moments of this video carry your spirit into worship, into gratitude, into quiet. Because this connection, it's not just information, it's impartation. And when this moment ends, something sacred will remain. A calm, a knowing, a quiet confidence that whispers, "My time is safe in His hands."